A new year, a new LumiRank tier list where it was an aggregate of a bunch of top players being asked, hey, how good do you think characters are? Rate them 1 through 10. So today we're going to be going over the LumiRank tier list, talking about my opinions. I mean, not just like, oh my god, I think this character's better, but there's an article about saying like what regions and stuff, who voted for where, what are the trends, etc., etc. So let's get into it. But of course, if you want to see me do tier lists, let me know down in the comments because I can always bring back tier list Tuesdays for just different fun things. It doesn't have to necessarily always be a competitive tier list because sometimes silly ones are more fun. But let's go. Okay, so this is the tier list. You see Steve on the top, Ganon on the bottom. Good start. I'm actually going to be working my way bottom up just because I think there will be more problems with the top. So I wanted to go bottom up to kind of be like, yeah, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. So lowest tier, Ganon and Little Mac kind of makes sense. Again, I maybe would put some other character at second worst because Little Mac is decent, but having him bottom 2 makes sense. Doc bottom 3, Belmont bottom 4, all those track. I'm surprised to see people put K-Rool below King Dedede because K-Rool has significantly more results. So in a region like Japan, I would think that K-Rool would be seen as better, also with Ball. And then of course you have a bunch of American K-Rools doing pretty well, like Moo, you have Lukewarm, you have, there's like 3 other ones, Brujo, obviously, as opposed to King Dedede, who kind of has no one, so that's a bit of a surprise. It does make sense that overall people are seeing the switch between Villager and Isabelle being better because there's just more Isabelle results, and having good ground moves is really important because their air moves are similar. So even though, you know, I feel like a lot of people consider maybe Villager side be a little bit better. I actually think for the Lloyd rockets at this point, Isabelle's is better because it is a kill confirm, like a better kill confirm. It's way less punishable because you don't have to do it necessarily in neutral. It's more so of a trap. And then of course the ledge trapping overall I think is better for Isabelle, even if Villager does have that bowling ball. Also consistent kills as opposed to, oh, I got a kill, oh, it didn't work. Again, similar to Marth and Lucina, you generally don't want surprise. Like I would rather take consistent killing slightly later than sometimes killing early and sometimes killing later. So that all makes sense. The low tier rounds out with Plant, Ike, Zelda, and Mii Sword Fighter. Again, I think Mii Sword Fighter is maybe a little bit better than this, but like he'd be somewhere in this tier, which is not really that much bigger of a difference. And Zelda, again, generally seen as a bad character. There are 2 pretty good Zeldas in Wine and Free K-Flock, but you know, there's decent of every character, so it doesn't really matter. Because, I mean, Toss got top 8 with Plant at a major, so whatever. Ball got top 8 at a major. You know, they're everyone, right? There's good players of every character. I guess this would be like lower mid-tier, because like lower mid-tier, upper mid-tier, high tier, top tier, I assume is what that would be. So in this lower mid-tier, you have some, you know, familiar faces that you would expect to see down here. Marth, Mewtwo, Bowser Jr. I'm a little bit surprised to see Puff so low. I think Puff is pretty good, but also I guess Base Mage has been doing slightly worse recently, even though he did get top 8 at Battle of BC last year, but he's not as consistently getting like top 8 and 12 at majors than he was. I don't know if Senra still plays for the Japanese crowd, but Puff is like pretty good. I'm kind of surprised to see Puff this low. I think Puff is at the very least at like the top of this tier, but apparently not. Again, a lot of these characters are like underrepresented / have a couple of good results here and there, such as Kirby. Of course, we have J-Jaw, we have Gilhu. For Bowser, we have Hedo. For Ridley, we have Mezcal, and we have all the NA Ridleys. I don't think there's, oh, I guess there's Misodade, but I don't know if Misodade is like super good. I just know their tag. We have like Leaf, who just got top 8 at a major. Jagabata just got 3rd, although that was after the data, and I think maybe even this tier list came out. So, you know, these are the characters that are just unrepresented. Maybe have one player who's super good with them, but otherwise, I mean, hell, Torigudi's down here, right? Torigudi, Gachapi. I'm actually surprised to see Banjo below Lucario, honestly. And also Luke's being down here, I guess makes sense, but is a little bit of a surprise. Gunner being this far down, you know, I feel like for people in Vegas or the Dominican Republic would shock them, but again, kind of makes sense. Chrom being this high is actually the most surprising to me. I guess maybe Japan thinks Lax is really good, but I guess we'll see when we get into the article. Then up into the B tier, we have Donkey Kong Pichu. Again, Pichu, this makes sense because a lot of people in Japan are valuing this character quite highly nowadays, just because of the fact that you have Yonipi doing really well, and there's a couple of other Pichus that are doing well. And then, of course, you have Nador Yu in Europe, so both Europe and Japan are probably rating this character a bit higher than North America. DK is getting crazy results in Japan, so this makes sense that he is like a bit higher than in Incineroar. And then, of course, we see a couple of Japanese specific characters. We have Shirayuki with Inkling, and then maybe Europe with Space, even though Space, I think, mostly plays Aegis at this point. You know, and then we have like this just solid good characters, right? Rosa, I'm kind of surprised is maybe this high. Rosa, Ken, who is the worst fighting game character, because people know that to be true nowadays. Surprised to see Pit this low, I guess. But then Falcon, Youngling, characters that are like explosive and pretty good, but overall just don't get the consistent results. And then when we get into A tier, we start seeing the consistent results of like, oh, these are like all the top players play these characters, right? Lucina at the bottom just because, you know, Proto doesn't play anymore. Toon Link down here because, you know, you expect Toon Link, again, is the highest link because Younglink is here, but you expect him to be the highest link at this point with the results of level 1, so that makes sense. Pokemon Trainer definitely saw a drop off overall, and then you just see good characters. Pac-Man being this low is insane to me. This makes no sense to me. Pac-Man is broken. Like, Pac-Man should be at least in like this Mario, like the A+ tier, but that seems crazy to me. But then again, these are just the good characters, right? Greninja, who's really mobile, Zerasuit, who's really mobile, Terry, who kills you, Mii Brawler, who kills you, Shulk, who is question mark, he's just weird, Ryu, because Ashimo's crazy. Then there are a bunch of good heroes basically everywhere except for Europe. Wolf just won a major, Pog, but you know, is good. Falco being the second highest spacey, right? Because obviously Fox is going to be up here, but Falco eclipsing Wolf in this tier list just because there's so many good Falcos in Japan, and Falco is just a much simpler character to succeed with. Sora being this high, honestly, is a bit of a surprise because I feel like there aren't that many Soras doing good anywhere. Like, again, in theory, Sora's top 10, because like, oh, just hit someone once and then you kill them. But, you know, it doesn't really happen that much in practice. Then we see Corrin being a little low for what I expected, given the propensity for Japan to be basing stuff off of results, and Shattuck is really, really good, and Shattuck beat a bunch of people. So that's a bit of a surprise, I suppose. Wario being down here kind of makes sense. He kind of just, you know, is less consistent, and again loses to at the very least 3 of the top 4 characters in Steve, Sonic, and Game & Watch. So those matchups can be really hard. Like, I feel like in the top tier, like, well, how do you do versus like the top 5? And Wario doesn't do super well. Then we just see like, you know, characters who people consider top tier, right? Mario here because he murders people. Palu here because she's just good overall except for ground moves. Samus is broken. Bayo is broken. Luigi, Cloud, Olimar being this high is kind of crazy, but also really dominant in Japan. And then of course Europe doesn't know how to play the character, and a lot of people have been losing to Shutone, his Olimar, more than his Aegis at this point. So, you know, a bit of a resurgence for this character's results. And then we have still broken characters: Roy, Pika, Yoshi, Joker. Like, all this kind of makes sense in general. I obviously would not put Snake this high. I personally wouldn't put Kazuya this high, but all this makes sense, right? It's like, wow, these characters are really strong. They have oppressive offenses or oppressive defenses, and they're just the broken characters, right? So I don't really have too much of a critique of the top tier. I mean, I, again, don't think Min or Diddy or Kazuya or Snake is this good, but they are very strong. So I'm not really going to be like, oh, I put this character at 17th and you put them at 8th. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Let us get into the I guess, analysis, right? Because the methodology is like, we talk to people. So Steve, consensus number 1 character with 62 of 93 panelists, ranking him number 1. Slight decline for the year before because I think people are putting Sonic as number 1. Although Sonic was the number 2 character by a considerable margin, more people put Kazuya as the number 1 character than Sonic. Oh, that's a surprise. I know Japan does not like Kazuya. I think they think Kazuya is like extra super broken. I don't know, maybe they were just like, yeah, Cole is really good. But there's so many Steves there that's a bit of a surprise to me. I don't know. Maybe it's not just Japan. So not 100% sure. Ganon's the clear worst, but the margin wasn't quite as decisive, you know, because I guess Ganons have been doing it better, right? You have Major, you have a couple in Japan, I think like Gungnir is one of them, and there's another one that I forget the name of, but you know, whatever. In a surprise, Japan ranked Simon and Richter as the worst character in the game below Ganondorf. That's what I'm saying. The Belmonts don't really have any results. Like, they kind of have T3 Dom, and T3 Dom stopped going to events, so I don't know. The 5 characters with the lowest standard deviations were Sonic, Snake, Mario, Roy, and Aegis, which is honestly kind of crazy because I guess those are the most consistently rated characters, and it's crazy that people consider Snake top 3 or around top 3. That's insane. But yeah, all these being top tiers make sense because people are mostly going to be like, yeah, the top tiers are broken. The 5 characters with the highest standard deviations are Dedede, Pichu, Mac, Marth, and Ganondorf, which again makes sense. If you put Ganon like at, you know, bottom 5 instead of bottom 1, that's going to be a huge difference. And of course, again, regions that don't have Pichu, regions that don't have Dedede, regions that don't have Little Mac. So like, it makes sense. I mean, Tadako Tori in Japan like automatically makes this character, at least a couple of people think the character's not that bad. Samus / Dark Samus was the highest ranked character to have no panelists put them in top 5 because they're not top 5, but you know, good character overall. King Dedede was the lowest ranked character to have a panelist place them in top 5. Who put them in top 5? Just to be clear, they do get rid of you know, outliers. Like if people put like really crazy stuff, it isn't weighted for anything. Like the top 5, I don't think it's going to have that big of a deal on the tier list itself. However, this next sentence with Pichu, maybe. Pichu was the lowest ranked character to have multiple panelists put them in the top 5. I don't know who's putting Pichu top 5. I don't know if they're trolling or if they actually think Pichu is broken and is just really hard, but that's insane to me. Luigi, Olimar, Hero, DK, and Kirby all rose by at least 10 spots. Kirby went up 10 spots? Kirby's still really low. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, yeah, I guess not as low. That's kind of crazy to me. But again, this makes sense because all the characters have a lot of results, right? DK is like crazy popular in Japan. Kirby has had several top players. Hero's gotten more popular. Olimar has become more dominant. And again, Uame becoming a top player in Japan is really problematic in terms of just like the, you know, there's just so many Olimars. And then Luigi, of course, probably the biggest story. Like Luigi and Corrin, in my opinion, were the two stories of 2024. And Luigi definitely had a higher one because Raru was just insane. And I mean, I guess Shattuck did a lot with Corrin, but there were multiple also Luigis do well. Like suddenly Luigi became super good, Raru became super good, Navy, and then there was a couple of other Luigis in Japan. So, and also shout out to Spickles from Georgia, who's, you know, doing well in the NA front. And Marth, Sheik, Pac-Man, PT, Sephiroth, Lucina, and Puff fell by at least 10 spots. Again, that's mostly going to be results based, right? Again, Base Mage did less well. Lucina's less popular. Sephiroth sucks. Pokemon Trainer less popular overall. Pac-Man, because team mostly plays Kazuya at this point. And then Sheik was a theory good character who's not actually that good. Wait, I don't actually remember where Sheik is. Sheik. Yeah, people are right. She's not that broken. Let's go, tier list. That's my favorite piece of the tier list right now is that Sheik is so low. Hell yeah. I didn't even really notice. Yeah, that'll make sense. Characters, you know, results got worse and they're like, oh my God, their theory broken. Just doesn't really matter that much. No characters dropped spots despite their score increase from 2024, while Duck Hunt, Inkling, Lucas, Mega Man, Ness, Piranha Plant, Ridley, Robin, Yoshi all rose despite their score decreasing. So I guess it's more stratified of just like, oh, some characters are, you know, doing worse, like maybe in perception, but like the spread is different, I guess. So, you know, who knows? As with previous iterations of the LumiRank tier list, different parts of the world differ dramatically in their esteem of different characters. The US and Canada were high on Mega Man because we have Peanut, Marth because we're crazy, Pac-Man because Pac-Man's broken and we have JDV, and we're low on Lucario, Falco, Olimar, Shulk, Banjo and Kazooie, and Isabelle, which again makes sense because these are all Japan results, right? You have Gachipi, you have Darikusu and Masa and Motsunabe, you have Uame, you know, Shutone, and I think there's even another Olimar that I forget at the moment. We have Shulk, who's doing well with Akio, as well as Kome, who's been doing really well recently, at least like a lot better than he was before. Banjo and Kazooie because Toriguri, and then Isabelle because of Kept, and I guess Furarara, I think the Isabelle that I covered the other day, maybe they've been getting good results and I just didn't realize. Latin America was high on Marth, which makes sense because of Leo. Sheik because they are like, I'm gonna do theory. Terry because there's so many Terrys in Latin America for some reason. I'm not 100% sure. Lucina, just because, again, they value swords and they have the region with Spargo and Leo. Robin, which this is a surprise. I don't know any Robins from Latin America. Maybe I'm just ignorant. Bowser Jr., because they have to deal with Zap Online a bunch. Pikachu, because Shiny Mark, let's go. Wario, because Gluttony goes to Latin America a lot. And I guess maybe there are also some Warios in like Mexico and stuff. I don't know. Wii Fit Trainer, don't know why. I was low on DK, Captain Falcon, Diddy Kong, Greninja, Shulk, and Banjo, because again, those are mostly going to be Japan characters, so that makes sense. Europe was high on Mewtwo, which I guess makes sense because they have Anvil and they have a couple of other decent Mewtwo's there. Marth plus 12, damn, and was low on Olimar. Oh, they hate Olimar. They hate Olimar, and they think Kazuya sucks, which again, I technically think Kazuya sucks. Not sucks, but just not as broken as Japan thinks he is. And then Captain Falcon. Japan was high on Falcon because they have Jogibu as well as Karaage. Isabelle because, again, you have Furarara, and then you also have kept mostly playing Isabelle. Falco because Falco's very popular and was low on Pikachu and Wii Fit Trainer. Yeah, they think Pikachu sucks. I don't know why they think Pikachu sucks. Shiny Mark beats all of them. And then there's a spreadsheet with the summary data for each character, and I think that is it. And then this is the entire list. So yeah, that makes sense. I mean, again, a lot of Japan is based on results. So they're like, hey, this character's doing better, therefore they are better, which again, 7 years into it, I'm not going to blame them for, because like, if you are going to have a game with 7 years, you can't just be like, oh, well, this character is theory broken, especially if no one is doing it. You know, like a lot of people will undervalue Pika because like Shiny Mark is the one doing it, because I don't play Pika anymore, and also for a long time I wasn't doing super great. So people are like, oh, well, you know, it's just Shiny Mark being really good, which I feel that for Shiny Mark, because it was really frustrating when I would talk to people in like the Brawl days and Smash 4 days. I'm like, y'all, Pikachu's broken, you just don't understand. They're like, no, you're really good. And I'm like, thank thank you, but that's not what I'm talking about. Like, yes, but also Pikachu's broken. Please acknowledge the character strengths, so that can be really frustrating. But hey, you're still in the top tier, so I'm not really going to complain about that too hard. Again, it makes sense why Japan's results are the way they are. Again, it's crazy they think Kazuya is super good, but also even like Kazuya, they didn't have him maybe like super high in terms of their, you know, Japan was high on blank character, but also I guess that's because he's like top 7, so he can't really be ranked that much higher. But yeah, what did you think of this list? Let me know down in the comments down below. Again, they, I think, pulled the top 100 or 150 players to put in their list. So again, this is mostly going to be top player stuff. So yeah, just for reference, there were 46 panelists from Japan, about 33 from North America, and then Europe had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and Latin America had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So again, weren't a huge amount of players. Also, surprisingly, like MKLeo didn't do a tier. I don't know. It's weird when people are like this ranked and then just like don't do the tier list thing. Especially, it's good content. But you know, it's really interesting to me that there's going to be, of course, some Japan bias here because Japan was most of the rankings. But also, hey, maybe because they're most of the rankings, they deserve to have more of an opinion and sway on these things because they are really good and they beat everyone's ass every time they come over, except for like a couple of players. So yeah, thank you all for watching. Let me know what else you want me to talk about, and let me know your opinions of all that happened in terms of this down in the comments down below. I would appreciate it. As always, social media partner stuff is down below, and I will see you all next time. Peace.